Greetings, beautiful earthlings. My name is Star. If you are new here, I don't know how you found me, but I am super grateful to have you. And if you are returning, y'all, the real MVP, you already know. Today, my friends, I do want to just kind of do a quick video explaining my tarot deck interview series. So I have recently had a whole lot of people just join my channel and gaining a whole lot of traction on a few videos. They're reaching 3,000 now. So I know that I have a lot of new faces in here, and I have a lot of new people that don't necessarily, connect with me outside of YouTube. So I know that there's a couple people that have this question because I've had a couple people ask me, which means a couple more people didn't want to ask. So what we're going to be talking about today is just kind of the tarot deck interview overall and what it is I do in my tarot deck interview videos and why I do them. So I feel like there's a little bit of misconception around my tarot deck interview videos, and I kind of want to clear that up because I knew it would happen eventually, that someone would get confused about it, and I just kind of never went too far into it because I have been doing that, interviewing my tarot deck series for a while. I think I've done 10 or 11 of them, and I have quite a few more still to do, and I kind of have just gotten to a point with the series where I assume that if you're watching it, it's because you're familiar with the series, and I just forget oftentimes that people can stumble over any video based on keywords in a search. So if you guys are brand new to my channel and you have seen my recent interviewing my tarot decks videos with my golden thread and my biddy tarot, I'm sure that's probably the weirdest thing you've ever seen if you've never seen a tarot deck interview, right? So where I had gotten the idea was the Chaotic Witch Aunt, because she did a video a long time ago introducing her decks and the energy of those decks and the call out ratings of each of those decks. A lot of you may know that I used to be a moderator for a witchcraft group, and in that group I learned a lot, but I also was able to kind of bounce a lot of tarot ideas off of a lot of members in the group. And I met a lot of like-minded people. I met a lot of really good friends in there that are really interested in tarot, which I'm forever grateful for. And I had learned in there that quite a few people had gotten names from their decks in meditation. So I am not the first person to come up with this idea, and I can't take credit for it as much as I would like to. I can't take credit for it. I just kind of ran with it because I do spend a lot of time with my decks. You guys know that. I do tons of bonding because I have tons of decks, so I spend a lot of time bonding with them. I'm constantly ingesting tarot content, be it books or diploma courses or things like that, to try and further my knowledge, and pretty much 80% of my life is tarot. So when it comes to bonding with a deck, I just realized I did a bonding with your deck video and I completely forgot to say, do a tarot deck interview. Okay, so when you get a tarot deck and you're bonding with it, it takes you a while to bond with it. I always say try to bond with it long before you do an interview with it, long before you try to do a reading with it, just so that you guys get to know each other really well and know your energy really well, and really have a good relationship before you guys start doing readings, right? So that you're not confused about the energy at all. And what I have noticed, as a lot of people do when you have multiple tarot decks, is that every tarot deck has a different energy. Now, the argument can be made here that a tarot deck is just a tool for divination in which you connect with your guides, right? And it can be argued that you are connecting with your same guides every time and that's it. Yes, that is true. And I do still believe the tarot deck itself is an entity and has its own energy and has its own makeup, if that makes sense. And the reason that I ask my tarot decks if they have a gender or if they have a name they would like to go by is so that when I am spending time bonding with my tarot deck, be it just shuffling, doing personal readings, things like that outside of YouTube, I have a closer bond with it, a closer connection, and I can talk to it like an old friend. And a lot of tarot decks will give you names if you ask. They will give you gender identities if you ask. It is a long meditative process. I have recently had people ask me how I get that information. It's not something where you're going to overtly hear something. It is a meditative process. I do go into meditation with my deck. I cleanse it very well. I cleanse myself. I sit there with it. I meditate with it. I try to connect, with the deck, with the energy, the spirit of the deck, and I ask them if they have a gender identity and a name they would like to go by. And I have noticed that all of my decks have different voices. All of them have different energies. And yes, that is why I do go so far as to ask them their gender identities and their names. This to me just feels a little bit respectful. Like when you meet somebody, you ask them their name and what their pronouns are. Don't just walk up to someone and go, "What's your pronoun?" But you know what I mean. You get that information when you first meet them. Same with animals. You meet them, you find out the information about their gender identity and their name, because it is a just kind of common courtesy with everybody that you meet, where you learn their name and you learn or their gender identity or roles or specificities on how they identify and things like that. And to me, it just makes a lot of sense that if the energy of every single tarot deck is different, you guys know I have well over 30 tarot decks. So if I have never had the same energy twice on a tarot deck, it makes sense to me that there is a spirit of that tarot deck. There is an energy associated with that tarot deck. And if I am spending a lot of time with that tarot deck and bonding, it feels respectful to me to ask its name. So I'm sure that is confusing to some people. I'm sure that doesn't make any sense to people. And I'm sure that sounds like demons to other people, which is completely fine across the board. I have said this before, it's not entirely necessary that you have a name for your deck. You guys also know, if you've watched my tarot deck interview series, I don't name my decks. I don't go, "You're going to be Clay and you're going to be Empy and you're going to be Joe." I don't name my tarot decks. I let them name themselves. I let them pick their names, and I let them pick their gender identities, and I let them tell me if they want to go by a specific name. Now, I have had tarot decks that don't want to go by a name and don't want to go by any gender identities, and that's why there are a couple missing in the series. If you guys have ever kept up with my tarot decks, which ones I get, which ones I've shown on camera, things like that, I'm sure you'll notice some inconsistencies in me not showing older tarot decks in videos, and that's because some of them don't have names. They don't want to give me a name. They don't want to go by a name, in which case sometimes I will ask them if they have a card they identify most with, and if they give me that card multiple times with that question, I will ask them if that's the name they'd like to go by. I have had this happen with tarot decks where they give me a card, but they don't want to go by that name. They don't want to. They don't want a name. They just do not want a name. They do not want a gender identity. I am a tarot deck. I do not want a name. I do not want a gender identity. It's not important to me. It has no effect on the energy. It has no effect on our bond. And that's completely fine. I respect their wishes. I'm not going to go out of my way to name tarot decks if they don't want to be named. So I just kind of wanted to clear this up a little bit, because I'm sure if you guys came into this series just recently, it probably sounds real wackadoo to you. It's probably real weird. And it's something I have explained long ago in the series and probably in other videos, but it's just something that I haven't touched on recently. So if you guys are doing an interview for your tarot decks, there is no necessity for any reason to give your deck a name. Don't ever feel like because my decks have names that your decks need to have names, and that if you don't get a name out of your deck that you're doing it wrong. That's not what that means at all. It just means you guys have a different bond. Your tarot deck is different than my tarot deck, right? So my tarot decks have no bearing on what your tarot deck's energy is, okay? So I want to make that very clear, you guys. You don't ever have to feel like you're doing something wrong because you're not doing what I'm doing. That's not ever the case ever with anything. We're entirely different people, okay? So I really hope that helped clear up some confusion. I really hope that you guys have a really good, trusty tarot deck interview spread. If you guys don't want to use the one that I have, like in the interview videos, I do always show that sheet of questions. That way you guys can utilize it if you would like. But I have seen some tarot deck interview spreads that are pretty messy. Like the questions are not clear, they're very messed up, and usually you'll have to kind of refine those questions anyways. I do always recommend using the questions as a jumping off point, not just as follow this and you're going to get this answer. Not always are those questions super clear, and not always will your deck respond to it. So I just really hope you guys take the time to refine your questions, learn what works for you and what works for your decks and things like that. I often have to reformulate questions for my decks. Sometimes they just don't bite with certain questions, or you're asking it wrong, or you're thinking a question in your head that's not the same question. Things like that can confuse the energy. So I think that's all I've got for this video. I just kind of wanted to make a super quick little explaining, clearing up, because it's not like a whole lot that I had to say, but it probably helps a little bit with the confusion. And going forward, I'm probably not going to say much of this anymore either. Same thing, I'm just going to keep going along with the series because I have a lot of tarot decks and they keep growing constantly, so I have to keep up with those interviews all the time. And it's super important to interview your deck and get to know them really well. Even if you don't interview them for a long time and all you do is bond with them and read with them, that's completely okay. I've done that before too, because like I said, I have tons of tarot decks, so sometimes I don't get to sit down and do the interview until I do it with you guys on camera. So to me, the bonding process is more important than the interview process, but the interview process makes for an entertaining video, so I do it for you guys. And because I am a stickler for continuity, I have to keep doing it to update you with all of my other decks. So it became a series. So I really hope that makes sense. I hope you guys enjoyed this quick little video. If you made it to the end, give me a big old thumbs up. You know that helps me out so very much. If you didn't like this video, that's cool. Thumbs down. You don't have to like my video. Say whatever you want in the comments, because y'all do anyway. And I really hope that wherever you are when this video reaches you, my friends, you have a beautiful, wonderful day. And I can't wait to see you in the next one. Namaste.